Hello and welcome to my newest Vex build. I'm sure you've seen 50 million videos about the bugged Vex bleed combo with the crit knife. Well, so have I, and I've decided to make a build without it that still destroys mobbing while deleting bosses, having great survivability and an incredibly fun playstyle with tons of ricochet. This is my sniper Vex build that also uses spectres to great effect, clearing waves of enemies without us having. Now let's get to the skill trees. We will be using the green tree and the blue tree for this build. Let's start off with the green tree though, as this is how primarily we scale our build and its damage. For the green tree, our first row of skills is very clogged as we grab 3 separate skills. For our first 3 points we pick up guns and needles. This is a kill skill which restores our Repkit. Restoring our Repkit is very important as it allows us to do primarily 3 things. First of all, it will trigger bloodshot, which this build is heavily built around. Secondly, it will bring back our cooldown due to a specialization. And finally, it will give us amp damage through our Repkit's effect. Next up, we grab Leeching Attunement. There's nothing more to say about this than it is a little bit of leech, which will keep us alive when we are using kinetic guns. Finally, we grab Grave Sight. This is a very efficient point as it gives us 9% increased crit damage for 1 point. However, it is a kill skill, so it is hard to keep up, but if we had more skill points we would put more into it, but the skill build is very stretched thin. Next up is the big one, Bleed. This skill has a 50% chance on crit to deal 30% of our damage every second for 4 seconds. With specialization we can get this to a 100% chance, and this is a very nice source of damage, especially with some skills in the blue tree which will buff our status effects. For mobbing you won't see much use out of this skill, however for bossing this is exceptional. After that we take Target Prescience. This skill gives our guns flat crit chance and is very useful, as oftentimes enemies and bosses will either be hiding their crit or have a very hard to hit crit spot. Due to skills like Bleed, as well as snipers having an inherently large crit multipliers, and Jacob's Ricochet from mobbing, hitting critical hits is very important, and this skill lets us do that. On the next row of skills we will grab Ars Arcana. While it might not seem like the build needs this, this will be important for our next skill. This next skill being Bloodshot. This is partly what the build is built around and allows us to scale our damage incredibly high, also allowing us to one-shot enemies with ease. What it does is add a percentage of our health as damage to the next shot after we use a Repkit, as well as converting the damage to kinetic, which is good due to no enemy resisting kinetic. This skill also scales from our previous skill, which is nice. Another nice addition with this skill is that it can trigger with our spectre that we summon while it uses a sniper rifle, turning a frankly mediocre minion into a monster, and allows us to clear rooms without even firing a shot. And what's even better is the bloodshot that we get and that we give to our minion doesn't get consumed by it. While also only being active after we use a Repkit might seem like a limitation, we do have a means to bypass that with our class mod. But before we get onto class mods, let's move on to the blue tree, in which we put our first 5 points into Sanguine Fiend. This skill keeps us alive and there's not much more to say about it. If you look at the gameplay throughout the video, we rarely go down to low health, let alone die. 5 points in the tree also allow us to grab Coven. This is incredibly nice, particularly for bossing, as whenever we summon a spectre we gain 10% increased crit chance, capping out at 30% with 3 spectres. This gives us a total of 45% as we have Target Prescience in the green tree. As stated before, due to this build being heavily crit based, it is a great skill. This skill has further benefits as it doesn't just give Vex crit chance but also her minions, which is very nice as it allows us to sustain Bloodshot through our class mod, which has a 33% chance to trigger Bloodshot whenever we crit with a minion. What's not stated is it also works for minions as long as they're using snipers, and we will be able to give one of our minions the snipers through the capstone in this tree. Next up we put 5 points into Portents of Suffering, which is a very simple skill and just gives us status effect damage. Since we're scaling bleed, this is a good damage increase to have. Finally, for our last row on this branch, we have Blood Sacrifice, which triggers our kill skills whenever a minion dies. We have 3 main kill skills on this build, which this skill triggers. First of all, Blood and Needles, which will get our Repkit back faster. This will give us an assortment of buffs, as stated in the previous segment. The next kill skill will be Sanguine Fiends. In this, treatment is a very nice source of survivability, as we will be constantly summoning minions due to getting part of our cooldown back whenever we use a Repkit, but also the next skill in the build. Grave Quickening is our next skill, which we put 4 points in to move down the tree, and this skill provides us 14% increased cooldown rate, stacking up to 3 times for a total of 42% increased cooldown rate. Due to our spectres providing a lot to the build, this is a very important skill for keeping them up. For the last 2 skills of the build, we first have Prismatic Ichor, which is a skill that applies a random status effect whenever we inflict a status effect. Now, the reason this is really good is, first of all, the status effect damage is 150% of the originally inflicted status, and also we convert our damage to kinetic. Due to kinetic not having an inherent status effect, this will always proc on our bleeds, which are based on our gun damage, meaning we can scale that, thus we can scale this skill with our buffs. Finally, we have Keen Suffering for our last passive. This gives our status effect a 20% chance to crit. Due to crit damage being the largest damage source multiplier in the game, this is very nice and allows our status effects to also benefit from crit damage bonuses. Investing these points also allows us to grab the Catstone of Heirloom, which gives one of our spectres a copy of our guns. This is incredibly useful for this build, as the spectres that has a copy of our gun can trigger certain skills, such as Bloodshot when we crit, due to our class mod, as well as Bleed. Spectres damage can also trigger specializations, such as Riddle You This, which gives a stacking gun damage bonus whenever you deal damage with guns, and also Contamination, which gives status effect chance whenever we crit, and in this case, whenever our minions crit. For our specialization, we first put our 10 points into Brute, then 10 more into Sharpshooter, which allows us to put 1 point into Killer. Killer unlocks Contamination, and Contamination is incredibly important for making our bleed consistent, as it quite literally doubles the effectiveness of bleed, taking it from a 50% chance status effect to a 100% status effect. Once we've got those points in, we put 10 points into Runner, which will allow us to unlock the Daredevil tree. The Daredevil tree now gives us Now with Caffeine, which restores 25% of our action skill cooldown on a Repkit use. We already want to be spamming our Repkit due to Bloodshot, which adds damage to our sniper rifle shots, and also we have Now with Caffeine. Now with Caffeine gives us our Repkit back, which causes us to summon more minions. When those minions die, we get our Repkit cooldown back as well, and it's a sort of self-sustaining loop that will make our gameplay loop much better. And also, this action skill coming back lets us summon more spectres who help a ton with mobbing, while also giving us Bloodshot and stacking our cooldowns. Let's move on to the gear now. Usually, Repkits aren't that important in a build. However, in this build, it is integral. This is because our Repkits get our action skill cooldown back, they give us Bloodshot, and getting our action skill down gets more spectres down who give us a whole host of buffs while also providing amazing support. Ideally, you want the lowest cooldown possible with Amp. If you can get cooldown when you use your action skill, that would also be great. However, you don't need it. For class mods, we really only have one option, and that is the Undead Eye, which can be obtained from Vile Lictor, a story boss you cannot miss. Critically hitting an enemy with a sniper rifle has a 33% chance to trigger Bloodshot, and due to Bloodshot only triggering when you use a Repkit, this is very nice for making it more consistent. Combined with your minions also triggering that line, this is amazing, and it removes the clunkiness from Bloodshot. For skills, you really only want one thing, and that is as many points in Bloodshot as possible. For shields, we have 2 main options. For bossing, the Timekeeper's new shield is unmatched, as it provides us with 7,436 maximum health. This can be obtained from the Timekeeper, However, he is a very hard farm if you kill both phases, but this shield only drops from the first phase, so once you kill him you can quit out back to the menu and re-farm it, cutting the farm in more than half. Now this extra health is important because of bloodshot. Bloodshot adds our health to our damage, and not just our damage but our base damage before it gets multiplied. So this effectively just adds 7,436 damage to all your shots when bloodshot is activated, making it literally unmatched for bossing. There are purple shields that give you increased max life, but nothing close to this. For enhancement, there's only one real main option, a Jacob's enhancement. Specifically the one that increases your ricochet, as it has some interesting effects with your two Malawan snipers while helping your mobbing for your other snipers. Now by interesting effects I mean it can hit twice or even thrice depending on how the ricochets work. Specifically the Katagawa's Revenge works incredibly well, but so does the complex route, primarily on larger hitboxes though, and on smaller hitboxes I would use another sniper such as the Boreal's ballista or just the Katagawa's Revenge. Ordnance for this build doesn't really matter because we are more focused on sniper rifles, so we're not really scaling the other type of damage, so all we really care about is the firmware. However, you can of course use a crit knife if you want to, but I choose not to because it's boring. Finally, for our gear section we have firmware. If we're using Malawan guns, we want 3 points into high caliber. This is so our bullets pierce enemies. Now what makes this really good, particularly with these Malawan weapons, is their splash damage and their radius. So when we shoot through the enemies, the splash damage triggers twice, effectively doubling our damage. This is particularly good on the complex route and it's amazing on the Katagawa's Revenge because it spawns double the drones. For our secondary firmware, we will get airstrike, which will increase our splash radius and splash damage by 20%. This is very nice. For mobbing, we switch over to 3 in airstrike and 2 for high caliber. That is if we're not using these Malawan weapons. For the missile on kill, which is very nice for clear on weapons like the Boomslang. Now let's get to the best part of these videos, the weapon suggestions. I've selected the 5 best sniper rifles due to the fact this is a sniper's build of course, and we will start off with the Boomslang. The Boomslang is a legendary Jacob sniper rifle which acts more like a tall weapon. It's a very simple gun that deals a lot of damage per hit and has splash damage. The unique effect of it is after reloading, the projectiles ricochet and attach a sticky projectile, making this weapon amazing if you want a basic sniper setup for mobbing. Currently it doesn't seem to have a drop location, however a regular purple Jacob is more than adequate for a replacement. Katagawa's Revenge is our next gun and it is one of my favourites due to its ability in the shock mode. What it does is it spawns up to 3 drones where the projectile lands once you shoot the gun. Now what's interesting about this is the drones spawn no matter if you hit, so if you use high caliber, which we do, and the bullet penetrates the drones will spawn even if the projectile doesn't hit an enemy. Now this also works with ricochet projectile, meaning one shot of this gun can spawn 12 plus drones. This isn't where the qualities end, as the drones attacks are considered bullet damage. More specifically, they're considered sniper damage, so when they critically hit, they trigger bloodshot, meaning every shot with this gun can be buffed by bloodshot. This turns a low damage weapon into an incredibly solid option, and this isn't even talking about how fun the gun is to use. This gun can be obtained in Carcania Bournes in the Tonish Peel region from Driller Hole just here. You can't miss him as he is a story boss. For our second to last weapon we have the Boreal Ballista. This gun is incredible for killing bosses, as when you fire it, it shoots a spiral of projectiles around it, making it exceptional at killing larger targets. With a crit chance from our skill, we can make these extra projectiles crit, and these critting projectiles can trigger our bloodshot from the class mod as well, meaning this is another weapon that can sustain bloodshot just through hitting enemies. Now, while not fully tested this, I do suspect the added projectiles get the bloodshot damage, due to them being unlisted. This can be obtained from the Timekeeper, which is the final boss, but you don't need to farm the entire fight, just the first phase. This gun can be obtained in Dominion, just in the centre of the map over here. The final and my favourite weapon is the complex root. True to the name, the gun fires in a square root pattern, and that is why it is so good. The projectile can already deal more damage with large hitbox, but combined with Pierce from our firmware and Jacob's Ricochet, the gun can do similar things to Katagawa's Revenge. This weapon is one of the best guns in the games in terms of mobbing, as well as one of the best in the hands of a spectre. This gun isn't just a mobbing tool and can hold its weight when bossing due to its unique projectile on larger hitbox, which a lot of bosses have, and this can hit multiple times for massive damage. Bosses such as Vile Lecter with its massive hitbox get annihilated. This gun can be obtained in the Fade Fields just in the Idolator's new section in the Tipping Point bunker just over here. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If you've liked, and if you want to subscribe, you're more than welcome to. If you've got any questions, comment down below. And I will say one more thing. I will be slowing down on these build videos a little bit, but I have got some stuff planned.